I showed you the other week how cray fishermen are opposed to a massive offshore wind project slated for their fishing grounds off the coast of the South Australia-Victoria border. Now there are growing concerns about a host of huge wind farms being built, with plenty more planned, in pristine bushland along ranges close to the central and northern Queensland coast. Protests are coming from places like this.
Okay, we're on the Lotus Creek wind farm site, and we've just found a koala. This is just incredible. It's so amazing. So really nice. Healthy's just woken up actually. He's up in the tree here. Beautiful old growth remnant forest. Really healthy looking koala sitting up in the tree.
That's local photographer Steven Nowakowski, and he's alerting the rest of us to what's going on in the name of renewable energy.
This is what's happening. So all you people out there in the cities that are pushing for green energy, this is what's happening in North Queensland. We're carving up our remnant forests. What's left, the high altitude areas, the places that haven't been cleared for agriculture, urbanisation, industrialisation, and we're carving them all up now for a new industrialisation called wind.
We're talking about billions of dollars of investment taking roadways, machinery, wind turbines and transmission lines into bushland and forest country inland from Rockhampton and further up the coast to Townsville. I caught up with Steven Nowakowski, who, as a lifetime environmentalist, can't quite believe what's happening.
Well, I feel very distressed, alarmed, disappointed, a feeling of dismay. Like I march the streets for climate action and believe that we do need climate action, we do need to decarbonise. But what I'm seeing here in North Queensland is not climate action, and destroying what is left of our high biodiverse forests, particularly in the high altitude areas, which are our refuge areas for wildlife. Destroying forests in the name of climate action is an oxymoron. It just, to me, that makes no sense. And what I find scary is that I don't know where the end game is. Where is it going to stop? Because there's a pipeline of about 79 of these big, large-scale proposals coming forward down the pipeline. You're looking at around 71,000 hectares of classified remnant forests in Queensland, earmarked to be damaged or destroyed with this rollout of renewables, in particular wind.
This is the point, Steven. You've got nothing against wind farms. You want climate action. You're all in for decarbonisation. Why on earth would we put wind farms in pristine bushland when so much of the country's been cleared?
Yeah, and that's why I said, look, I'm very dismayed at what this state government's response has been. They've actually abrogated their entire responsibility. The only industry in Queensland that is exempt from the Vegetation Management Act and the Nature Conservation Act is the wind industry. And look, I've campaigned for 30 years for tighter controls on land clearing. We finally got the Vegetation Management Act passed by the government to try to stop broad-scale land clearing in remnant vegetation. And then we get the wind farm coming in, being exempt from that very legislation that we've fought decades for. So, so I can't believe the state of affairs in Queensland in terms of land clearing for wind energy in particular.
So let me play devil's advocate here, Steven. The fact is there are roads gone in, so clearing spaces made to put the turbines up, but most of the bushland is left undisturbed. Is there an argument that the habitat itself is not completely diminished, is not destroyed?
No, the habitat is completely diminished. To even contemplate carving up that country with 150 kilometres of brand new haulage roads, these aren't just little roads, these are 50-metre wide roads, up to 70-metre wide roads. And you have to remember these wind turbines go on top of the hill, so there's huge amounts of civil engineering getting these big pieces of infrastructure to these mountain tops, rock pavements, hilltops. So there's a tremendous amount of damage being done to the landscape.
Steven, you talk about companies looking to find the cheapest options closest to transmission lines. We understand that. But do you get the sense also that in choosing these wilderness areas, they're actually deliberately avoiding the cleared, settled areas because that way they might get less resistance from landholders who don't want to look out and see windmills in their areas.
Yeah, and that's right. So what we're trying to say to the state is actually come up with a plan. Don't leave it up to big industry to cherry pick where they want to go. That means having a master plan for the state of Queensland that has areas that are no-go zones. So places of cultural significance, places of high biodiversity, they're all no-go zones, and the balance of areas, and there's vast areas that are cleared, degraded, that are still okay for the rollout of renewable.
It just makes sense to have something like those sorts of controls. Are you surprised that there's not more resistance, not more opposition to this? I mean, if this were a mining company, I would have thought there'd be people marching in the streets, but this seems to be going on without a lot of public attention.
That's right. And I think a lot of people have this romantic notion that the wind industry or renewables in general is a clean and green industry. And the wind industry is completely diametrically opposite to that. It's a very brutal industry on the landscape. So people see wind turbines in rolling sheep fields of Scotland or Scandinavia, but when you move that industry into Australian bushland, it's actually quite a brutal industry in terms of land clearing and civil earthworks. So people really need to understand that when they're fighting for climate action and they want renewable energy, there are serious consequences with renewables. I've been an environmental campaigner all my life. I've fought for forests that are far less significant than what I'm seeing destroyed right now. The Lotus Creek wind farm should never have been approved. It's a complete disaster. I've never seen so many koalas in my life, and that place should have been a national park decades ago as a Great Koala National Park. It's a complete farce, and what is happening is broad-scale devastation of high biodiverse habitat in this state because of the absence of any planning schemes and mechanisms.
Stephen, thanks so much for opening our eyes to this issue.
Yeah, no worries. Well, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.